Dexter Morgan. Blood spatter analysis by day, serial killer by night. Calculated, methodical, and one step ahead, except the times he wasn't. Across 8 seasons, Dexter constantly found himself on the brink of exposure, narrowly escaping disaster time and time again. Here were 17 times Dexter almost got caught. Starting with Season 1, when Angel almost discovers Dexter's blood slide box. After a night of drinking, Dexter lets Angel crash at his place. The next morning, Angel, still hungover, starts wandering around.
How'd I end up here?
Angel, feeling hot under the weather, went straight to the air conditioning unit, where Dexter's blood slides were hidden. Upon noticing that something was blocking the vent, Angel began fiddling, seconds away from uncovering evidence. Thinking fast, Dexter intervened with an excuse about running late. When Angel offered to stay behind and lock up, Dexter refused outright. Had Angel pried a little harder, he would have found Dexter's blood slides, leading him to expose Dexter's double life right then and there. But for now, his quick thinking saved him. The dead don't talk, or so Dexter thought. After eliminating Jorge and Valerie Castillo and dumping their bodies in the ocean, Dexter thought that he had finished the job. But the next morning, police swarmed the salvage yard. Stepping inside the trailer, Dexter froze. Valerie's body was back on the table, untouched, staged perfectly.
Impossible.
The ice truck killer had retrieved her body from the ocean, a message Dexter couldn't ignore. Even the smallest trace of evidence could have exposed him. This moment was the first time we saw Dexter shocked in the show. Someone knew his secret and was toying with him. Up next on the list, we see that the next morning at the salvage yard, police hear a noise from a car trunk. Guns drawn, they open it. Inside was a terrified young boy.
This is how it ends in the hands of a 7-year-old?
Oscar, one of the Castillo's captives, told LaGuerta that he saw someone take Valerie Castillo into the trailer the night before. Dexter, trying to hide his panic, realized how dangerous Oscar's testimony could be. Later that night, he returned to the salvage yard, climbed into the same trunk, and looked through the peephole. His heart sank. Oscar had a clear view of everything.
But it can't end like this. It's too soon.
Panicked, Dexter scrambled to erase all evidence of his ritual tools. Meanwhile, a sketch artist worked with Oscar to recreate the person he saw. To everyone's surprise, Oscar had drawn a picture of Jesus Christ. Had Oscar seen Dexter's face properly, Dexter would have been finished. There'd be no way to explain why he was there that night. This moment proved that Harry's code couldn't protect him from the unpredictable. In episode 12, we see Deborah being held hostage by the ice truck killer. Dexter, in hopes of finding his sister, decided to visit the shipping yard, breaking in with pliers. Inside, he only found stacks of bananas. As he was about to leave, Sergeant Doak shows up, which is the moment we all know as he says his iconic line.
Surprise,
Dexter claimed that he was investigating the case, but Dokes wasn't buying it. They got into a heated argument, which later turned into a fight. Dokes was shocked to see Dexter's fighting skills, and said, A worker showed up before things could get serious, threatening to call the cops. For Dokes, this was proof enough that Dexter wasn't who he claimed to be, and his suspicions were only growing. Me personally, this was my favorite episode. I had no idea that Dexter could fight like that. Against an ex-special force like Dokes, this was the first critical misstep for Dexter, a crack in his carefully crafted persona, and the moment that planted the seeds of suspicion that would grow throughout Season 2. We'll see a lot more of Dokes as this video unfolds though. Dokes had been on to Dexter for months, convinced he was hiding something. His suspicions led him to his apartment, where he found the ultimate proof, the blood slide collection. Later, when Dexter got home, he realized the slides were missing. Panic set in. Then he got called to Miami Metro by Lundy and Matthews. He braced for the worst. Instead, Lundy revealed Dokes was the prime suspect and the slides had been found in the trunk of his car. Dexter had narrowly escaped disaster.
Our primary suspect is someone you know well.
Had Dokes handed over the slides right then and there, Dexter's cover would have been blown instantly. His life as the Bay Harbor Butcher would have ended right there. With Dokes framed as the Bay Harbor Butcher, Dexter still faced a major risk, the blood slides that Dokes had stolen. If tested, any trace of Dexter's DNA would expose him. Luckily, Dexter was assigned to analyze the slides himself. He knew he had mere minutes to erase all traces before the forensic team arrived. Thinking fast, Dexter meticulously wiped each slide clean. Just as he finished, the forensic team arrived. With the evidence now sterile, Dokes remained the prime suspect. Had someone else handled the slides, Dexter's fingerprints would have been found, exposing his secret on the spot. Even with Dokes framed, he remained a major threat, pushing Dexter closer to exposure until the season's dramatic conclusion. Dokes had been watching Dexter for weeks, waiting for proof. Tonight, he finally had it. His suspicions led him to a secluded cabin, where he caught Dexter red-handed. Dexter was in mid-disposal of Jimenez's body, unaware that Dokes was closing in. Dokes emerged from the shadows, guns drawn, ready to end the hunt. Dokes tossed over his cuffs, demanding Dexter surrender. Dexter, thinking on his feet, lunged forward, gunshot firing, hitting Dexter's leg, sending them both into the water. Despite the injury, Dexter overpowered Dokes, choking him unconscious before locking him in a cage. Had Dokes been more cautious, or had not been overpowered by Dexter, Dexter's secret would have been exposed instantly. Miami Metro would have unmasked the Bay Harbor Butcher and Dexter's double life would be over. But with Dokes now trapped, the real question wasn't if Dexter would get caught, but how long he could delay the inevitable. Revenge brought Michael Prado to Freebo, but fate led him straight to Dexter. Convinced Freebo killed his brother, Miguel was out for blood, but he was too late. Dexter had already handled it. Just as he finished, footsteps approached. He barely had time to wipe his knife before stepping outside, right into Miguel's path. When Miguel looked inside, Dexter was finished. Miguel was shocked to see the bloody knife in Dexter's hand. Thinking fast, Dexter played innocent, saying he killed Freebo in self-defense, and Miguel, blinded by grief, believed him. Had Miguel stepped inside, he would have seen the plastic-wrapped room and the truth behind Dexter's self-defense story. There'd be no escape. Instead, this moment set up an uneasy alliance, one that would spiral into chaos. A split second, that's all it took for Dexter's double life to nearly come crashing down. Literally. Dexter was exhausted, struggling to balance his family and secret life. After a long night, he was in the middle of a kill when Rita called. Harrison had an ear infection. He had to finish fast. Dexter packed Benny Gomez's body into garbage bags and loaded them into his car, but he was exhausted. While driving, his eyes started to close. Then everything went wrong. A vision of Harry startled him, causing him to swerve. The car flipped in a violent crash. Police arrived with their sirens wailing. Strapped in the ambulance, Dexter watched helplessly as officers searched his wrecked car. His tools and the body parts were inside. One wrong move and it was over. By sheer luck, they towed the car without checking, but later, Dexter realized some body parts were missing. That night, he found a drop of blood at the crash site, leading him to Benny's remains hidden inside a punching bag. If the cops had found anything, Dexter's secret would have been exposed. It was a brutal warning for him. Fatherhood and murder don't necessarily mix well. Dexter had been helping Lumen take down the men who tortured her, making sure to leave no trace. But Stan Liddy had been watching. For weeks, he had tracked Dexter, waiting for solid proof. Late at night, Dexter and Lumen loaded Cole Harmon's remains into the slice of life. Believing they were alone, they took the boat out and dumped the body, thinking it was gone for good. But they weren't alone. Liddy was watching, with his camera ready. From a distance, Liddy snapped photo after photo of Dexter and Lumen handling body bags, tossing them into the ocean. This was undeniable proof. Had Liddy taken the photos straight to Miami Metro, Dexter's secret would have been exposed on the spot. No way out, no excuses. Instead, he held on to them, convinced that he could bring Dexter down himself. A mistake that later cost him his life. Dexter had spent years hiding his double life, especially from Deborah, but everything changed when his hunt for Travis Marshall took an unexpected turn. Deborah, following her instincts, was about to discover a truth that would shake her world. After saving Harrison from Travis's ritual, Dexter returned to the abandoned church to finish him off. Travis lay strapped to the table, completely at Dexter's mercy. Just as Dexter was about to deliver the final blow, Deborah arrived at the worst possible moment. She froze in the doorway, staring at her brother, knife in hand, ready to kill. Had she reacted differently, drawn her gun, or called for backup, Dexter's secret would have been exposed instantly. Instead, shock held her in place, giving Dexter precious seconds to think. In the aftermath, Deborah struggled with an impossible choice: turn him in or protect him. Torn between duty and loyalty, she chose to cover for him. Together, they staged Travis's death as a suicide, destroying evidence and setting the church ablaze. If Deb had alerted the authorities, Dexter's kill room would have been discovered, and no jury would have believed his self-defense claim. Instead, Deborah became part of his dark world, something Dexter had fought to prevent. Dexter had spent years covering his tracks, but this time he was doomed. LaGuardia had been chasing the Bay Harbor Butcher case for months and was convinced that it was Dexter. When Estrada, one of Dexter's intended victims, went missing, she saw her chance to bring him down. LaGuardia arrested Dexter in front of Harrison and Jamie, confronting him at Miami Metro with what she believed was solid evidence. She showed security footage of him loading garbage bags onto his boat and produced Estrada's blood-stained shirt and wallet. Dexter played along, pretending to be caught off guard, but Masuka's lab results flipped the case. The blood on the wallet was decades old, and LaGuardia's fingerprints were on the evidence, proving it was planted. Instead of exposing Dexter, LaGuardia's case collapsed, making her look desperate. If Dexter had panicked and spilled the truth, the evidence would have mattered. His reaction alone could have given him away. Late one night, after covering up LaGuardia's murder to protect Dexter, Deb was spiraling. Consumed with guilt, her once unshakable moral compass was gone, replaced by alcohol and regret. She stumbled to Miami Metro and saw Quinn, one of the few people she still trusted. Without hesitation, she confessed. Quinn was stunned, unsure if she was joking or confessing, but when he pressed for details, she repeated it, even louder. Before anyone else could hear her, he yanked her into a private room, trying to sober her up. As someone else overheard, someone more skeptical than Quinn, everything could have been exposed. An investigation would have followed, digging into LaGuardia's final case and inevitably linking it back to Dexter. One reckless moment could have destroyed them both. Instead, Quinn dismissed it as drunken rambling, unknowingly saving Dexter's secret once again. If you enjoyed reliving these moments, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your favorite close call in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.